You guys get your Botox injections?
I did. In fact, I was actually playing around with the settings here on my camera before we got ready to do this, and just to figure out where I'm not so like blown out or something like that. But one of the things is that it says enhance your improvement, and I check the box, and it basically it takes away like all my blemishes and stuff like that. I opted to keep my blemishes for this podcast, but there's a button in there you can push that that will like smooth your skin and stuff like that. So I didn't know that. I thought that was apt for our conversation today.
On this platform, it does it.
Yeah, yeah. If you go into if you click on that video thing, there's that little up arrow, and then you check like video settings, and then what does it say? It says touch up my appearance, and here I am touched up. I don't know. Could you see a difference? So here I am without it, and here I am with it.
Oh,
Takes about
your
a year
skin
off.
is flawless. Yeah,
Where is it?
it's a
Good.
oh no, like Tom said, go to the up arrow on the video.
Up arrow on the video.
There's
Where
a
it says
video
stop
icon.
video?
Yeah, and then click the video settings. But it's the bar. So you toggle it, right, Tom? You do
That's
the
right. Yeah.
okay. So can you tell any difference? Like that's it on, off,
Upgrade,
on.
improve,
Yeah,
team
you
check.
just go a little bit.
Gotcha. I'll
Where
let
would I
him
find?
react.
Oh, touch up my appearance. I got it. Okay.
Did you click it?
Did.
Man, you can't even tell. Look at that.
Yeah,
It was good looking already.
All right, so welcome to episode 112 of Farm to Markets. Today we're talking about how younger savers will cope with reduced or no Social Security, a boomer clawback, flawed inflation models, Z and Botox, and Florida's ban on lab-grown meats. And again, this week, Alex has been doing me a solid favor by pulling these questions out for me during the week, so I don't have to. So a lot of these are from him, and people who actually email about the show, which we've been getting about. So that's always appreciated. So Alex is on vacation this week, so we'll just read his questions without him. So make it a little bit less awkward when I read Alex's question back to him and have him answer it. Okay, so. So a few weeks ago, we discussed recently proposed method that could potentially help alleviate current Social Security issues in the U.S. I think you remember it was talking about the Social Security cap. This raised some questions that like what younger savers can do now to prepare for the possibility of not having Social Security as a fallback. What options are available to younger generations to make up for the Social Security shortfall or the reduced Social Security benefits?
So I don't see a whole lot of options. Real quick, I've said it before on the show. I think most people know my opinions. The Social Security system is horrible. It's a Ponzi scheme. And there was some statistic done by the Heritage Foundation. They found that right now, a lot of the workers paying into the Social Security program are experiencing a negative annual rate of return, somewhere between 0.04% and minus 14.5%, obviously depending on one's age. Now that's a pretty terrible rate of return. Let's just put it this way: if that was our track record here at Piedmont, we'd probably fire ourselves out of respect just to our clients. So it's a bad system, particularly for Gen Zers now. They should be up in arms about this. I don't know why they're not. I don't know why our generation, Tom, isn't more up in arms about this. Basically, they're being forced to play this rigged game, and they're being made fools of. So as far as their option goes, I only see about two. One is vote differently. Only elect people into office that promise they're not going to employ Ponzi schemes. And two, probably the most realistic, is just know that the system failed you. Cut your losses and make a vow to the moon and stars that you're not going to do anything so stupid to the next generations. Then start aggressively saving for yourself. Don't expect the government to give you anything. It can and it should be done to take retirement into your own hands.
I don't know what more I can add other than some color commentary to what Drew said. Is that since I was your age, I have been in opposition to Social Security. It was as if the scales fell from my eyes, and I could see um, Social Security for what it actually was, which is what Drew stated. It's a Ponzi scheme, and like most Ponzi schemes, the people who are first in line get all the profits, and the people last in line, i.e., Generation Z, get all the costs. I, I don't understand why any Generation Z person who wants to have a family where you're actually going to raise children, what you stand to benefit from Social Security? It's all losses. There is no gain. I guess for that, for that Generation Z person who's hoping for universal basic income while they're young, and then Social Security when they're old and never have to work a day in their life. I guess maybe for those folks, the illusion that that actually will actually transpire might be worth voting for, but it's nothing but losses for generations from Gen X and beyond. So uh, politicians are going to have to make some hard decisions, and the question is who are we going to stick it to? Are we going to stick it to the elderly by cutting their benefits, or are we going to tax the baby boomers? Or are we going to stick it to the people who are supposed to be paying into the system to support the baby boomers? Quite frankly, I think that what we got to do is just come up with a collective decision that we're going to ease ourselves out of this Ponzi scheme over time. People who are already retired or who are close to retirement probably should get something. What I don't want to see is I don't want to see means testing, because that's a recipe for disaster, as productive people will change their behavior so as not to get hammered and have money that they earn taken away from them so that people who don't earn it get something. So I propose that we slowly wean ourselves off of Social Security. But the idea of let's stick it to the young or let's stick it to the old, I just don't think those are viable options.
Yeah, I think a couple things are going to happen is that you're going to have to slowly raise the age that you're eligible for Social Security, and everything I read online says that the right now, if I look at my like the average like 35-year-old's benefits online, and assuming that you've made close to like $100,000 a year, your your estimated Social Security check when you turn age 62 is roughly $40,000 a year. And to come up with that, you basically need $1 million by the time you turn age 62. And if you work the time value of money equation backward based on the interest rate you need to save about like an extra $1,000 a month to make up for the Social Security shortfall. The thing that they don't mention is that $1 million, 30 years from now is not actually $1 million. It's probably half of that. So there was
But your $100,000, Tom, you'll probably be making more than that because of inflation as well. So if you go with your 12%, tax to yourself, it probably would be consistently correct.
Yeah, if you do it on a percentage basis, sure. Like I'll give you that. You do it on a percentage basis, okay. I guess I was just looking at like some of the articles I read in Forbes where they're quoting a dollar basis and like, it's it's just $1,000, roughly $1,000 more. I mean, that's fine to get to a million, yes, but yeah, you're right. If you're all of that's going to be adjusted by inflation. I guess the point I was trying to make is that you're not shooting for $1 million. Most likely, if you're like 30 years away, you're shooting for closer to like $2 million. And that's just to replace your Social Security benefits. There's also a lot of stuff that says out there that Social Security will be insolvent in 10 years, which basically means, but that's if we do nothing. So if we just do nothing, supposedly what will happen is that they reduce benefits by 20%, and the people paying into the system now get 20 or 80% of their benefits is what I read, and that's from Forbes. So but who knows like how true that is? I know some of that's from like I get some of this from the Social Security Administration as well. So I'm sure there's a bunch of people are sitting there being like, yeah, that's not going to happen, and like to some degree, I believe you. And there's a lot of people in their mid 30s who we do retirement planning for who are like, just don't plan on it. And if we do that, again, the amount that you have to save is considerably higher than those who are planning on Social Security. And I guess my point to all this is that, there's no magic bullet. I mean, you have the ability to invest in things. This, you can only invest in the same things that everybody else has. Like it's not like there's like some like insane investment option that's going to accelerate your savings. Like pretty much all you have is like either the S&P 500. If you want to get really aggressive, you could go with like the Nasdaq 100, or you could just buy the 7 biggest stocks in the S&P 500 and go with that. But basically, is that there is no magic bullet to this. You're going to have to probably work longer. You're going to have to save more, and you're not going to, whatever retirement benefits you do have are going to be taken later. And I think that's why it's important to have good relationships with your family members, because you tack long-term care on top of all this, and yeah, you have a lot of retirement problems in the next 30 years. So yeah, there's no magic bullet to it. So you got to save. You're probably going to work longer, and it becomes more important to have good relationships with your family members so that people can kind of help take care of you, and you can take care of your family members when they reach those retirement ages. Sorry, that was very long-winded.
Like I said earlier, for people who actually have children, in my case, my siblings and I, we pay substantially more in Social Security taxes than what our parents actually get in benefits. And they'll say, well, yeah, but you're basically paying for the rest of society. Why would we want to do that? Particularly if society is really, really bad with their money. Why don't you think you get people to make better decisions if they all were kind of responsible for making their own decisions? I certainly believe so. But um, Social Security is going to have a bad ending no matter what. If we get rid of Social Security, that's a bad ending. If we keep Social Security, that's a worse ending. But as Drew said, let's just say it was a bad idea and get out of it as quickly as possible.
Okay. Okay, so the next one kind of pigtails onto, or kind of rides the coattails in this question, but there's a gentleman named Jonathan Russo, an economist or economics reporter from The Hill, is alarmed about the national debt. Maybe not today, but in the near future, he argues, will be a major handicap on the U.S. economy. He's dubious about the counter arguments that we can simply grow our way out of debt. His solution: tax the boomers. A baby boomer himself, he argues that the boomer era was defined by historically huge budget deficits combined with generous tax cuts, including putting the war on terror on the national credit card and chronically underfunding Social Security and Medicare, in spite of reheated warnings about the solvency going back decades. Russo, who calls his fellow boomers generation plunder, argues that to pay off the federal debt, much of the baby boomers' estimated 84 trillion in wealth should be clawed back to make up for past debts. Do you agree? And how do you think this could be done?
I guess a lot of this was kind of said earlier with the first question, but in short, no, I don't like the idea of clawing back funds from baby boomers. That's just wrong. The whole Social Security system is wrong, but taking money from the wealthiest generation, that's just theft. They paid into it. Don't punish them just because this horrible system is starting to collapse unto itself. Now, obviously, as we talked about earlier, something needs to change, and some people are going to get the short end of the stick eventually. I will say this: before I had kids, Social Security, it was just a stupid program that I had to acknowledge every time that I looked at my paycheck. Now that I have kids, it changed everything. I'm beginning to think of them and not of myself. And quite frankly, it saddens me that many folks are more concerned about their share of Social Security and not how the next generation is going to be affected. For me, I kind of like where Russo was at. At least he's willing to let the buck stop with him. So at least someone's willing to do it. And I hop on that bandwagon. I'd be willing to continue to pay into the Social Security Trust Fund for the rest of my life, if I knew that the system was going to be dead by the time my kids entered the workforce. I'd be fine not receiving any Social Security benefits, at least if we stop this train. I don't want to die knowing that I was part of the system that enslaved my kids and my grandkids. It doesn't sit well with me. Knowing that I robbed the younger generations gives me this sick and guilty feeling. I want to be part of the generation that planted trees in which we will never benefit from its shade. I think if you have people like that, that's where economies thrive.
I don't know if it's a good faith suggestion that we tax the baby boomers just because Jonathan Russo happens to be a baby boomer. I don't know his personal situation, but when he talks about the 85 or for the $84 trillion in wealth that the baby boomers currently possess, that's not in a glass jar buried in the backyard where you go and you peel off a couple of $100 bills and you pay those taxes. That's usually invested in capital. It's invested in property. It's invested in businesses. It's invested in stocks. It's invested in all sorts of things. So if you're going to tax that 84 trillion, does that mean that you just hand over the 84 trillion dollars to some IRS agent and then they sell it and you don't have to pay capital gains? Or are you required to only pay in cash? If that's the case, you're going to sell the 84 trillion to Clawback. Well, what happens when all of these people start selling their Apple stock or selling their Microsoft stock faster than people can buy it? The price is going to drop, right out the bottom of it, and you're going to implode the economy because a lot of people, for tax reasons, have been borrowing money against low basis, high capital gain assets. And if that happens, Katie barred the door because it's going to get real ugly real fast. I think what we first stop, like we always tell our clients on an individual basis, stop borrowing. You can't borrow your way to prosperity. You got to stop doing that first. And when we have an administration that is extremely cavalier about spending money in a peacetime economy with borrowed money, what's going to happen if we ever go to war? Is that there is no extra cash. If you want to solve this problem, the way you solve it is you have the federal government start selling land. Have them sell Glacier Park. Have them sell Yellowstone. Have them sell all that the Department of Interior property. I, for one, would be willing to buy some property to help to pay off the national debt.
Yeah, vote for me. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with your opinions. All I'm saying is that'd be a hard platform to get elected on.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Anything to like fix it, I feel like is going to be hard. But so one thing I did find interesting is that when I was reading about different Social Security solutions, is that Bill Ackman's solution is to give every baby born about $7,000 and put it into essentially a retirement account they can't touch until they're about age 62. And his thinking is that if you grow that, in the article I read here on Yahoo Finance, let me just see if I can get the actual number here. He wanted to put it says Ackman plan is for the U.S. government to place $7,000 into an account created for every child at birth, and then essentially he's assuming that a rate of a growth rate of 10.5%. So that way, by the time they get to their early 60s, they have roughly like $1 million in an account. Which I think what the article is assuming is that you're making up for the $1 million shortfall in the Social Security benefits if you don't have it. The problem is if you're trying to hit $1 million, okay, again, this is not. So if you're going to give a one-time $7,000 gift to a baby, it's going to have to basically be double that, because $1 million 62 years from now is roughly about $6 million to have the same thing. So, and in his argument is that it would only cost the government about $28 billion versus a lot of like their other spending programs that are in the hundreds of billions of dollars. So he thinks it'd be cheaper just to cut a brand new baby a check, lock it up until their retirement age, and then just be that's all you get. I thought that was intriguing. I'm not a proponent of that, but what I guess in response to this article, what I'd say is that if you're in the generation that voted to that implemented Social Security and you're feeling guilty about it, and you have the resources, I would give each one of your grandchildren $16,000, put in an account that's either in your name or in an account that they can't touch until they're age 62. and then you'll basically given back, what your generation basically could possibly have taken away. Now that doesn't really help the millennial generation because we're kind of stuck in the middle there. But if the baby boom generation wants to help their grandkids, you could basically just time value money backwards and then give your brand new baby, $16,000. That's not nothing, especially if you have like 3 grandkids, or for some people they have like 10 grandkids. So I don't know how feasible that is, but if you have like 1 or 2 grandkids and you're doing well and you're feeling bad about that, I would just put $16,000 away for them and just make sure they can't touch it until they're age 62.
I like that. I don't know where Bill Ackman's 7,000 was coming from, presumably the government, but yeah, taking it into your own hands, having families do that, that would compound interest would work miracles there. But I'm kind of mad at Bill because he never acquired SpaceX in his SPAC from 2020.
Yeah.
So
We got
he loses
Domino's.
credit with
Yeah, we
what's
got
that?
Domino's Pizza.
Mhm.
That's what. How long did we wait? You were in that too, weren't you? The SPAC.
About a year, I think. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, finally the white smoke. He's like, I bought Domino's. It's like, oh,
I was holding out. SpaceX all the way.
no, sorry, it wasn't. It was a music company. It was like Universal.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was some recording company. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like this is garbage. So
Yeah. Either way.
yeah. Anyways, but yeah, Bill's strategy was to have the U.S. government put $7,000 in essentially a retirement fund for each brand new baby, claiming it'd be cheaper than continuing to fund Social Security, which he might be right.
All of these wonderful ideas sound remarkable on the giving side. It's the taking of the $7,000 to make it available to give that causes all kinds of hate and consternation. And if Bill Ackman wants to go ahead and seed it with his own money, I, I think there's lots of Americans who would salute him with both hands. The problem is that if you start taxing one group, people who are well connected will just lobby to come up with some sort of scheme to where they can avoid the tax. That's what happens every time. So you come up with some tax scheme where you're going to tax people. They just change their behavior to avoid the tax, but you've already made the promises. So then the government feels compelled to print more money, causing inflation, and you end up hurting the very people you're trying to assist. But you got those votes bought, and so you basically were mission accomplished.
Yeah. One quick question before we move on, Joe. I'm assuming what is your right hand side? Do you have a computer screen that's up and to the right of you?
I do.
Okay, because sometimes like when Drew's talking, you like you look up into like to the right, and it looks like one of those photos where you're pretending like not to pay attention. And I'm like, you must have a computer screen up there or something, or sorry, just observation. All right. Next question.
Sometimes I'm fact checking you, Tom.
Oh yeah. Well, as we found out earlier, you weren't here for this, but I made the claim in our office that 90% of people took Social Security, claimed Social Security benefits at age 62, and I was ready to fight Drew to the death.
Yeah, there was an uprising.
And it turned out I was mistaken. And quick fact is that it's actually while my 90% wherever I got that from was way off. It used to be like even like 10 years ago that like about half of people took their retirement benefits at age 62. And as Drew pointed out to me, is that now it's around like only about 30% of Americans claim their benefits at age 62, which I thought was a pretty staggering decrease in the amount of people waiting or the increase in people waiting to take Social Security benefits. So
yeah, it is. Yeah.
So so fact checking. That's we do that in our office here. Okay, so next question is that Barry Rizholtz okay, I gotta go in here. So we got about 10 minutes left, so we gotta get going. So Barry Rizholtz, like a blogger, newspaper author, Bloomberg contributor. He's also known as the blog father. I don't know if you knew that. But founder of his own wealth management company, Rizholtz Wealth Management, has taken issue with the Federal Reserve remaining steady on interest rates. In particular, he points to what he says is a flawed model by the government in calculating CPI inflation. He argues that interest rates at 20-plus year highs had already led to costs of shelter to decline, but the CPI math lags the real world by about 18 months. And this fact isn't showing up in CPI yet. In addition, high rates have created a golden handcuff situation in the housing market where no one with a mortgage wants to move because higher rates will make getting a new mortgage significantly more expensive. And the rates they currently have are historically low. This has kept housing inventories down, keeping existing and new home prices high. He says cutting rates would actually lower inflation because housing costs would decline significantly with more inventory and lower rates. Based on his argument, do you agree that the Fed should cut rates now?
Oh man. I agree with a lot of the reasoning from Barry Risholtz on this one, but I'm not willing to die on this particular hill, just because there's too many what ifs when it comes to monetary policy. I'm not the Fed. I don't like playing armchair quarterback. I like playing quarterback, and if I can't play quarterback, at least I can help folks navigate the landscape of changing interest rates when they change in front of us. I tend to fall into the Austrian school of economic thought, so the Fed directing monetary policy has never been my first choice for inflation management to begin with. But since our system gives the central bank the authority to pull those levers, I think Jerome Powell has actually done a pretty decent job, given the mess he had to clean up after the government infused trillions of dollars into the economy over the last 4 years. So I don't know if I'm not going to definitively say if we should cut rates, unceremoniously or not. I, I I don't know if it's appropriate. I think the cautious approach is still fine. Let's put it this way: if the Fed were in a car approaching a red light, I don't think they would wait until they were 5 feet in front of the car in front of them before they slammed on their brakes. And on the flip side, they have to be prepared to react if like a deer ran out in front of them, or if they got cut off, or if their brakes fail, something like that. So I think a more cautious approach of what they're doing is fine, at least from my vantage point.
I disagree with him completely. I don't think cutting rates is going to reduce inflation at all. And this whole idea that by cutting rates you actually reduce the price of housing, no, you don't. You basically just reduce the cost of borrowing money, but you don't actually reduce the cost because the way people buy houses is the bank tells them exactly how much they can afford to pay a mortgage on a monthly basis. And so some of what you pay on a monthly basis is interest, and some of it is principal. And so if you can afford $2,500 a month in a mortgage payment and you lower the cost of borrowing, you just increase the cost of buying the house. And that's what we saw when interest rates were at, in the basement. For years and years and years, we had interest rates that were below 4% for mortgages. Real estate prices went through the roof. The reason why real estate is expensive now is because people are leaving the cities and moving to places like Whitefish, Montana. Heck, you want to buy a cheap house? Go to Detroit. They're really cheap there. West Virginia, you can get a screaming deal on real estate in West Virginia. But if you're going where all the other people who have options are going, real estate's high because there's huge demand and limited supply because places like Whitefish, Montana have building codes and they won't let anybody just willy-nilly build a house like we were in Houston. So I think he's way off the mark on this. And I wonder if his wealth management company has anything to do with real estate.
That's what I was wondering too, actually.
It might, because yeah, when I read this, I was like, that's no. Like I like Joe, like wholeheartedly disagreed with it. And I guess my thinking is that because these people have the golden handcuffs placed on them, if the Federal Reserve's lower interest rate, everybody's going to try and sell their house at once and like try and buy another house. And basically, you're just going to get what we had during the pandemic when interest rates were super low and everybody was like trying to move to Montana or something like that, is that you get everybody trying to buy houses in other parts of the world. I don't think it's going to do. I don't think it's going to do. I don't think it's going to decrease the price of housing.
And I can't speak for all people, but I don't think it's high interest rates that are stopping people from selling. It's high capital gains that's causing people to not sell. Like in my case, when we looked at building a building down in Kalispell and selling the building that we have up here, I couldn't pencil it out on an after-tax basis. What I was going to get was not going to be an improvement over what I'm doing now. And I suspect that there are millions of other sellers who, as well, who are going, why would I sell and have to pay all these capital gains when I'm limited to the 1035 exchange restrictions on, I got to find a property right now. It was hard to find a property and make it all work when you have supply shortages and everything else. So I think he's all wrong on every front in this particular comment.
Okay. All right. So we have 4. Go ahead. Do you want to say something?
No, we can move on.
Okay, I guess we got 4 minutes left, so you're gonna have to make the next 2 questions pretty quick here. So the next one is that Gen Z, roughly defined as those between 1996 and 2010, is the first generation to be online basically for their entire lives. The oldest Gen Zers is pushing 30 now, and one trend that Gen Z is embracing more than other generation appears to be Botox injections and other facial, what Alex put here, tweakments. Oh. So the reason some argue is that Gen Zers want their IRLs. I have no idea what that their online face to look the same as Instagram or their real face to look as it does on Instagram or Zoom, as we were playing with before the call today, with a filter on. Do you think this is a worrying trend that people are getting Botox to look like they do on like a Zoom call? By the way, my facial treatment is not on, so just FYI.
Gotcha. So you just look that good always.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This is so out of my world that I don't know if it's healthy or not. I think it's probably just a trend, from the whole evolution of the economy. I think, well, I think that the cost of these treatments has probably gone down significantly too, so more people are doing it. But like you said, Tom, everyone is on the internet, at least the younger generations. So they're in front of more people. I could see them wanting to look better in front of more people. Long way of saying, I don't know.
I think a cheaper way for the Generation Z to look better on Zoom and video conferencing, just be smart. Just don't say stupid things when you're in a meeting. I think that'd be way better way to improve your image than to get Botox injections.
Yeah, I think you're gonna drive yourself crazy trying to, because artificial intelligence is pretty good and it's gonna make it look different. So you're gonna drive yourself crazy trying to do that. So yeah, so I'm a little worried that
I don't think these Gen Zers are trying to look good in the boardroom. I think they're on like Instagram, or they're trying to be social media influencers based on the look of their face, not on their intellect.
Yeah. Well, I guess I thought what they're trying to say is that they want to look good good in real life as they do on a Zoom call. And it's the same, it's just the same problem. It used to be that, like people look at, like beauty magazines and then feel bad about the way they look. Now you look at like Zoom and feel bad about the way you look, unless you turn your filter off. So I think it's just the same problem. So I'm not horribly concerned, but yeah, I mean, I think people should probably lay off the filters and stuff like that and just, be comfortable with, reality. All right, we're going to move on here. So last one is that Florida has officially become the first state to ban the production, distribution, and sale of processed lab-grown meats. Governor Ron DeSantis, upon signing the bill to ban it, said Florida is fighting back against the global elite's plan to force the world to eat meat grown in a petri dish or bugs to achieve their authoritarian goals. Republicans in some states increasingly have targeted lab-grown meats, with some legislators citing safety concerns, while others see a more sinister motive in the lab-grown meats. Do you have a problem with lab-grown meats, and would you eat it at all?
Nope, I have no problem with lab-grown meats. Would I eat it? No. Do I care what Florida does? No.
I would not eat lab-grown meats. Heck, I rarely eat meat that you grew yourself. I only eat my own meat.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. Like, it doesn't mean that's bad though. Like, if you want to give lab grown meat a try and make it good, like, go for it. So that's.
I had an Impossible meat patty once. I was going through a fast food place, and it was like the Impossible sausage breakfast sandwich, and I was like, oh, it must be like the Whopper, or like it's impossible because it's so good. And I ate it, and I got a bunch of weird comments of the other people in the car. They're like, you like that? I had no idea. And honestly, I couldn't tell. But
all right, well, that's it for episode 112.